Hi, so today we're breaking down Ink with Christopher Soren Kelly and Quinn Hunchar. This is your spoiler warning. If you proceed past this point, I'll assume you've either seen it or you just don't care. So this probably has to be one of my favourite films, if not the favourite film, at least in the kind of no budget category. It does have flaws, you know, it's not without them, no film probably is, but it's kind of lovable despite, or even perhaps because of those. And one of the things that makes it so appealing, at least to me, is the fact that the writing, the direction, and the music are all, you know, selling one message. Doesn't hurt that it's one person doing all three roles. So, from the start, we have a clear delineation of the different worlds. The dream world is very soft focus. The real world is just simple, no effects. You know, it's as it is because it's the real world. That's how we see it. And then the Incubus world is very kind of grainy and green and dark, and there's a clear tonal difference between all of them. And this is intentional. It has been confirmed in interviews, and I think it really helps to make sure that we're always aware of where we are. And of course, in this first section, we see John waking up, you know, and Emma, who is so adorable, by the way, just wanting some simple attention. She wants time with her father, and she's told she has to schedule it. We're already given ideas of how John's life centres around his work, and obviously, as we see throughout the film, that becomes even worse once tragedy strikes. But we see that he can let go. Now, only in dreams it seems that he can let go. Again, you know, this theme is picked up later. But in dreams, he's able to just go, tell you what, okay, I'll come out, we'll fight some monsters. And it's such an adorable scene. We know the dynamic that they want, and obviously we then get the introduction to the storytellers, who I suppose in a way could be conflated with guardian angels. They are seemingly, you know, going to specific people. Alel seems to know Emma in a way, you know, through her dreams. And obviously when, you know, she's trying to be kidnapped, she is protecting her, so again that guardian element comes in. And while I'm talking about sort of angels and obviously incubi, incubus, it's a type of demon, I have seen people say, you know, it's God-bothering nonsense and all this kind of thing, and I think you can enjoy it from a secular standpoint. I certainly did. I could acknowledge that, I grant you, but I don't put it into a religious connotation myself. I just go, well, these are forces for good and forces for evil, and in a way there has to be a balance, because you can't appreciate the good dreams, you can't appreciate what the storytellers are doing for you if you don't have the incubi doing the opposite to that, giving you the nightmares. So yes, I acknowledge that you can draw religious parallels, but I don't think it's in your face like some people. I think some people want to be offended. You know, that doesn't just apply to film. I think some people really want to be offended. I took the core message of this film, and we'll obviously get to that in time, rather than taking any religious connotation. If anything, the follow-up film, The Frame, which I may cover in a future video, I think has a more overt religious angle to it. So of course, like I say, Emma's kidnapped, and you know, they're all dejected. Alel's had her rear end handed to her, shall we say, and she gets the services of Jacob, the Pathfinder, who is blind. And if I had to say, you know, if someone said to me, pick a favourite character, pick one favourite role, it would have to be Jacob. I almost did a Halloween dress up as him once, because I just think he's such an amazing character idea. You know, I mean, obviously the trope is well known, the blind man who sees more than the people who can see. But everything about him, the fact that, you know, again, like I said, the music plays an important part of this film, and Jeremy Make playing Jacob, just, you know, with the rhythm of the universe, you know, the beat of the world as it goes on, counting down, and his humour married with his seriousness. You know, he falls and greets the ground.
Hello, Dirt. And how are we today?
He's really on point. He wants to make sure that everything goes right. And I think it's this idea of, like, the weight of what needs to be done would be too much if you didn't add some levity. He knows that there are 2 lives, 3 lives if you can't leave, hanging in the balance, and I think he needs to have that levity to make sure that it doesn't become too overwhelming for him and for Alel and the rest of the storytellers on the mission. And throughout we're given snippets of John's life so we can build a picture ourselves, and I do have to quickly comment on my love for a lack of linear narrative. There's things that happen in the middle of the film that are at the start of the story and, at the end that are in the middle, and vice versa. And I love that kind of storytelling. It keeps you engaged, it keeps you on your toes. You're not just following the beginning, middle, end. You're kind of getting bits of each in different places, and I love that method of storytelling. And I think it really works because we're slowly given the information about John. If it went linearly, we'd see him meet Shelley, have the child, have the tragedy, go crazy, then become Ink and kidnap his child. We'd see it linearly, and I don't think it would have had the impact. It wouldn't have given them the right message to us. I think it would have been too straightforward. And again, having seen The Frame, I think this is a particular method of storytelling that Mr. Winans really enjoys utilising. But with John, like I say, we do get his story, we do understand what his life was like, and even before Shelley's death, his priorities were perhaps a little askew. They weren't the best that they could be. He was throwing himself as much into his work as he could, and to a degree neglecting the family. Obviously, after Shelley's death, he pretty much threw himself into it because that was his whole life now. These deals were life and death to him because it was literally, he makes this succeed, otherwise he may as well not exist. And people in loss do that, they throw themselves into their work or other projects, and it's absolutely a sad thing, but people grieve in different ways. I'm not saying he's right or wrong for throwing himself into his work. I think not allowing himself to deal with it properly is the problem. If it's not working, then try something else. But, like I say, he was losing his family before that point, and it really sort of cements this idea of a man just careening towards tragedy, really. And obviously at the start we think, horrible car accident, but then we learn that was created to actually save him. This weird idea that something bad, a car accident, being hospitalised, is actually what you need to better yourself. And we will come back to that, because obviously that's very much a culmination point, and there is a lot to take apart for that. So we'll continue through the film a little more. Now, as we look through the film, obviously Lee's part is quite important. She's kind of there, as far as we're aware at first, for Emma. She's helping her deal with this horrible situation where she's being taken somewhere for she knows not what. But it is just as important as Jacob and Allel's plans, and obviously the rest of them. All these things have to come together. If they don't, then the whole thing falls apart. Each part of this puzzle has to be on point, and Lee is such a great character, and really well played as well. To make us think she's there for Emma, and then at the end it's, no, I'm here for you. Ink, I want you to be the best you can be. She's very submissive to him. She allows him to do what he needs to do. It's this whole idea of, I can tell you what to do, I can tell you how to do this thing, I can tell you how to improve your life, but you know what works best? If I give you just ideas and you run with those. It's so much more fulfilling, it's so much more rewarding, and so much more likely to be maintained. And this is what she wants. She's, it's something that a good friend of mine has said in the past, that he's good at: positive manipulation. It's giving people the idea that they could be better, but not telling them necessarily, you have to be better and this is how. Because people rebel from that. It's unfortunate, but people do. People don't like to be told how to live their life. But if you give them ideas and hints, they can take it up themselves. And as I say, this is Lee's purpose. She's giving John purpose. Or Ink purpose. And even so far as saying, when Emma's asking, is he a bad guy? It's like, well, he's not good. It's hope. And this is what the storytellers, embody. As much as anything else. One of their greatest traits that they represent and they promote is hope. And by saying he's not good, it opens the door to the fact that he could be. It's not a, yes, he's evil and he needs to be stamped out. The Incubi are too far gone, I think. I think we can establish that. I think we can accept that. They are the polar opposite. So they know that there's nothing they can do to save them. And again, like I said before, I think the balance is important. But with Ink, who's on the path, he can still be saved. And that's, like I say, Lee's important mission. Jacob and Allel are saving John. She's saving what John becomes. And between them, they can repair this relationship and save Emma in the process too. So we see through John's story this idea of perhaps intertwined fates and even causality to a degree. But Jacob kind of makes us aware that there can be changes to this. Chains can be broken. We can be intertwined in different ways. This is how he causes the accident. Whilst there is a beat of the world, the melody can change. You can break the chain, you can adjust the flow. And that's a really important point. I think it's this idea of, hope is knowing that things can change. Despair is not expecting anything to change. Everything's down in stone, it's all going to be terrible. Hope is this idea that you can have change, and it can be a force for good. When you counterpoint this with the incubi sort of saying that empowerment is losing touch with feelings, it's so you're just hollow, you don't have to feel anything. Well, hope is a feeling, despair is a feeling even, obviously, so they don't even feel despair, they just are. Meaning that they are just accepting what happens. They're not perhaps as much of an agent for change as they believe they may be, which is quite an interesting counterpoint, like I say, to how the Pathfinders, the storytellers, are. They want things to be improved. Incubi just, the world's not a nice place, accept it. And with this kind of mentality of the incubi, it's almost like the fact that negative emotions are clouding us from ourselves. But in a way, this is also something the storytellers believe. This is where there is a similarity between the two camps. Both believe that the negative emotions don't allow us to be free, they don't allow us to be empowered. Where the incubi say remove them, the storytellers say overcome them. There is still hope. Have the dark moments, have these horrible things in your life, because if you come out the other side of it, you'll be better for it. It's, a common thing, like adversity makes us stronger people. But I think another interesting angle from this sort of negative emotions idea are the drifters. We see two of them, the Collector and the bride Sadie. And it's almost like their sins, in a way, and this is perhaps where you could bring some of the, sort of religious element that people want to attribute sort of into it. Well, the Collector's obviously greed, and Sadie's obviously vanity/pride. And yes, this is perhaps the most overtly religious kind of Seven Deadly Sins angle, but I think you can enjoy it from a secular viewpoint, because the message still underneath it is clear. They couldn't move on, and in just repeating the mistakes of their life, if you will, holding on to things and holding on to this idea that you are the most beautiful. By doing that, they are in fact as hollow as the incubi, but they're not willing to admit it. Now, throughout the film, obviously, we get this journey, of Leave with Ink, and by not giving him a fight, by not sort of being too aggressive with him, just being very passive and submissive, she is bringing out the good in him. By not pandering to that side of him that wants to just be angry, and that really helps towards the end, because, like I said, the emotions are clouding the judgment. He wants rid of them, but Leave wants to make him face them, because he is just a caricature. This is why Ink's look is the way it is. It's a twisted version of a person, just filled with rage and hatred and bitterness and regret, maybe some guilt, but he doesn't know why. He's just angry at the world, angry at everything, and he wants to be rid of that. And of course, she starts to bring it out of him. She's been stabbed, she's on her deathbed, if you will, and she makes him remember the good of his life. She makes him see what once he was fighting for, what once he enjoyed about life, and he lost that. It happens. We all go through varying degrees of tragedy in our lives. It's something that exists. But she makes him see what he was, and makes him realise what he did. It makes him realise this is his daughter. Whilst, at the same time, the plan with Jacob and Alel and the rest of the storytellers making John actually go and see his daughter in the hospital to rebuild that bond. This is again where the non-linear storytelling really works. So this is where the John from a potential future is coming to save his daughter. Now he realises, at the same time that John from the real world is coming to save his daughter in the hospital. and it's a beautiful confluence. And John's Walk is one of my favourite pieces of music in the film, because it's got the main theme, but it's got a hopeful and dramatic tone to it. It really sort of makes me feel quite motivated a lot of the time. Because of that association, it's a way of going, yeah, you can do things, just don't let it overcome you. Rise above it. And he builds that connection. Ink can no longer exist because John has been saved. Like I say, I can see where the religious angle, can be interpreted, but I enjoyed it from a secular standpoint. The idea that there are these fantastical creatures, like in perhaps Neil Gaiman's Sandman series. The fact that people can be rescued from their misdeeds, rescued from their negative emotions, and we just have to remember to hold on to the important things in life. We don't have to. Yes, obviously we have to make sure that we can survive, but I think if we threw ourselves into our work constantly because there's nothing else fulfilling us, then we'd run the risk of becoming another John. We have to have the balance. We have to remember what's important. And I think one final point, that this film gave me as well is we do things in the world. We exist. We have our deeds laid out behind us as a record of where we've been and what we've done. But those deeds are not us. John has made mistakes. John has had some heartache. And Ink was created because John didn't deal with that. He was defined by these deeds, by these things that he wouldn't have wanted to be defined by. But in the end of it, he rises above. He goes, no, I'm not defined by those deeds. I am this person. I am a caring father. I'm here for my daughter. I'm here to make it right. And so the two messages of this film, I am not my actions. They do not define me. And don't lose sight of what's important. Hold on to it. A very important message is, with or without the religious angle. And it's what's really spoken to me about this film, what made me want to cover it. These are not hidden or conjecture-y, like a lot of the other analyses, but they're important life lessons. It's why I come back to this film, why I watch it. I've seen it multiple times, just to remind myself of these things and to feel that there is good to balance the bad. There is hope to balance the despair. And there is a beat of the world that we can all dance to. So until next time, as always, take care.